Hey everyone, I'm back. It's been a few weeks, and it's been quite a ride. I went to court about several days ago, last week, and the court that time was for the misdemeanor, not the felony. Same court, same floor. They're next to each other. So I went for the misdemeanor, and I knew it was going to happen. I was really stressed out about it, and sure enough, the attorney came and to retaliate against me for having uh, taken out a police report on him for his threats, for having filed a bar complaint like I said I would. He not only went in the court session before that one for the felony and tried to have me declared incompetent falsely, even though he and the judge Herskovitz knew and even discussed the fact that I was not incompetent. But they did that to try to shut me up. And I didn't shut up. I went after court and I filed a police report. The attorney, in fact, followed me to prevent that. So I had to go back to a police station and file a police report afterwards. Um, and then last week I went to court for the misdemeanor, and the misdemeanor carries at the most 6 months. And this is a malicious prosecution case because I'm absolutely not guilty. And he tried to have me declared incompetent in that case too. And that process could potentially take more than what the sentence even carries, which I know I wouldn't be sentenced because I would ultimately be found not guilty because it's a false case. I even tried to speak with the attorney in a very logical, collected manner, um, and he wanted, for his appearance sake and to continue to try to cover up all his wrongdoings and the misconduct in the courts by falsely declaring a doubt as to my competence. I have not only been, on my part, communicating faultlessly and effortlessly and properly with this attorney, and I not only understand the entire court process, I'm very cognizant of it, and in fact I've done a lot of things for this case on my own legally that the attorney has not done or has caused me to have to do as far as paperwork and filings. So he went in and he told this judge, Yule, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, that he had a doubt about my competence, which he had no doubt. He's lying. And that case has been trailed behind the felony case, which is literally next door to it on the same floor. And I go back later this month. Now, the night before this last court session for the misdemeanor, in my personal life, I did something which I should not have done, and I accept all the fault. I went back to somebody who I knew I should not have gone back to. I went back to a relationship which, for about the past 3 years, at least since 2014, has been very deep, very hurtful, and very toxic. And a lot of us in our lifetime have come across or will come across, not all people, but I believe a lot, one time come across that one person who has the deepest impact on them, either in a bad way or in a really good way. This person has had the deepest impact on me in an improper way, in a way that I could never put him out of my mind, but I've always left him. But in a lot of ways, emotionally, I couldn't let go of him, and he'd always bully me and or manipulate me into going back with him. He's a sociopath, and he reminds me a lot of my mother. My mother was and is a virulent sociopath, and so is this man. You know, when I met him, I didn't suspect that about him, and you would think that as a child of uh, narcissistic psychopath parents that I would recognize the signs um, right away. I did recognize the signs fairly quickly in him, but not right away. When I met him, it was uh, only days after they had wrongfully taken my baby, my beautiful, beautiful, perfect baby. The father had taken him, and I was in devastation. I was in utter distress mode, and I hadn't eaten or drank for days. I was starving, I was parched, beyond thirsty, and I hadn't left the house. I was so deeply depressed, and one morning when I finally left and I went to see a woman and talk to her, and on my way back home, I thought to myself, well, I haven't eaten, I haven't drank even juice, any liquid in days, and maybe I should stop by and get a salad. And I went to a local supermarket here, and I was standing in line. I was very quiet. I was keeping to myself, and that's when he spoke from behind me, and I looked back, and he wasn't particularly, as one would say, my type. He wasn't what I would go for, but at the time, that's not what I was even thinking. I just looked back, and I saw somebody who had just a second ago from behind me said, "Oh, it'll be all right. You just have faith in God, and it'll be all right." And that's when I turned around and I looked at him, and my eyes welled up, and I told him everything. And from then on, even though at the time I wasn't interested in him romantically, 2 weeks into it, I felt curious, and from then I was very, very much hooked. And it was initially a sexual thing for me. I do have a sexual compulsion. Some professionals might diagnose it as an addiction. I admit it's a compulsion. And once again, I'm keeping to myself. These past 3 years have been very up and down and explosive. I recognized fairly quickly, if not immediately, but fairly quickly, that he too is a narcissistic sociopath, and I attribute that to that's what I attracted, and I realized it. But by then, there's never, almost never a too late. I could have stepped out of it, but we're human, and in our human bodies, our emotions take over, and I operated on emotion, and every time I left him, he would convince me to go back to him, and I did. When I met him at the time, he had a girlfriend of several years, and they were on the outs, but they were still together. She had moved out a long time ago, but they got back together, and according to her, they had agreed to try to make it work out. And when I found out, because he'd been cheating on me, he had a girlfriend when he met me, and he didn't tell me that, and up until the 13th of this month, he still lies or lied and said that no, they weren't together. They were. I spoke with her, but I still made the decision to go back to him early on after I had left him because he convinced me to, and I knew he was lying, but I allowed him to manipulate me. And I left him about a year after that, and I was actually done with him. I had made the decision that I wasn't going to put myself in the position that I was in with him anymore, and I was done with him. Unfortunately, I met another guy. I think it was around 2015, and it was a very, I intended for it to be a one-night stand. It was excellent sex, and things about it put me in a different emotional position. And right about that time, because I'm on his rotation list, um, you know who, this one, uh, called me back. He decided it was time to try to reel me back in, and I wasn't willing to go back to him because I knew what I would be headed for. But knowing what I was headed for, eventually I did go back to him, and I intended with him for it to be a one-night stand to get the other one um, out of my system, is one might say. But he manipulated my emotions, and I allowed him to. And maybe I manipulated my own emotions. Maybe I based my emotions on something that wasn't there, specifically something that he did not have to give, even though he swore up and down that he did. I stayed with him, and it was very, very destructive. He did a lot of things to me that at this point I cannot mention. He did a lot of good things to me physically, and he also did a lot of far worse things to me. And when I left him last May of 2016, it was, the things that he had done to me were unforgivable, and in fact pretty harmful to me, very harmful. I had problems long after I left him last May. But the way that I left him, I always knew he would be my demon. I always knew that. I knew that he would always be my demon. So about 3 weeks ago, one night, after a date with someone else, as soon as I got home, I drove down to his house because he did live practically down the street from me. I drove down to his house and I knocked on his door, and at the same time I also noticed that there was a for sale sign. So I could see the end again, but this time differently. Long story short, he was really excited to see me. He couldn't stop talking, and we had a thing that night. And I chose to leave very early in the morning, and in the next 2 days I'd rather have closure, but I texted him goodbye, and he wouldn't leave me alone after that. And he knows all about my court situation. He knows everything about me, and he knows me inside and out. Whatever happened early in his childhood that caused him to be who he is what's happened to a lot of people. I may be an armchair psychologist, but I know that I'm right. And he is what he is, and I knew that. I knew when I left him last May that there would never ever be a future for us. But he was my demon. You can want somebody with your all. You can love somebody, but you can also be very unhappy. And, that's the situation with a lot of people. We do things while our intuition screams at us, and we even know that our intuition is right. We know that we shouldn't do something with someone. We shouldn't be with someone. We know we're with them for all the wrong reasons, but we do it. Doesn't make it right, and we know that it's not going to turn out all right. But I know that I'm strong. I know that I'm a soldier. But this time around, it was the worst. Oh, and I'm suffering heavily. But I'm dealing with it. I'm dealing with it inside of myself because one of us had to leave. And up until the last moment, he told me that he was moving and he wanted me to go with him. And I think he could sense this time that there was something in me that didn't feel the same way about him anymore. And at the same time, I knew with everything in me that there would never be a future for us. But on the outside, I couldn't tell him no, so I kept saying, okay, yes. But he knew. But being that he's an NP, NPs have agendas. They cannot love truly. They cannot empathize. And he cannot and he never will. And I want a future. I want a future with myself. I want a future with my children, and I would like a child. If there ever were to be someone, I would want a future. I would want somebody real. He's incapable of that. And last Monday on the phone, he caused an argument. He was going to pick me up that night, and he caused an argument, and I said goodbye and I hung up, and he texted me and cussed me out really bad. And the new attorney that he had paid for on Sunday, he went and canceled the payment. And I knew that was coming. And he hasn't looked back. Sure enough, right now, he doesn't look back. I'm the one who's left here to look back. And I'm not going to say, but it's okay. It's not okay. But one of us had to do it, right? And if he considers himself the one who dumped me, that's fine, because I couldn't go back to him. There's no way that I could go back to him. There was not anything for us tomorrow. never deny that. I knew it and I couldn't deny it. I don't know why though, this time, it's really bedeviling. Oh, it's tough this time. I don't know why. It's over and it's bedeviling. He's gone from that house. He no longer lives down the street from me. He's gone to another city. Maybe part of it is that it's for real this time. See, you can't deny what is. You can go around it. You can delude yourself. You can lie to yourself. You can stall for time. You can say, think, and do whatever you want, but no action that you take on it is going to change what is. The only action you can take is to go non-con, and that's non-contact, and to work through it on your own and ask the universe and ask God, not why me? In my toughest moments, I have to be my toughest. In my darkest moments, I have to be hardest. And to be that survivor that I always have been. It's not who I've always been, it's what I've always been. It is me. I'm a soldier, I'm a survivor, and I'm brave. It rips you apart, but you can't let it break you. Like, I never let it break me. This time it's been shredding me. But I'm dealing with it. There are consequences to not taking the right action on the wrong things. And I'm facing my consequences. But that's just it. I'm facing it. Look, the internet can be a blessing and a curse. It's both, and it's a fact. YouTube, however, is a blessing. It's a blessing in many ways. It's the universal resource. Look at it this way. Who do you think you're not? Ian Levinzant said it best. Who do you think you're not? To paraphrase, do you think you are not the one who could love you like you want to be loved? Do you think you are not the one who could rescue you and save you? All those nights when you thought, when you knew with every fiber of your being that you would not make it through, but you made it through. You pulled yourself through. All your videos, all your resources are there. But those are just your jumping boards. Only you can do what needs to be done for you, and you know what needs to be done. If you don't ask the universe, be open, be receptive. Don't ask why me. Don't put yourself in victim mode. Put yourself in receptive mode, in open mode. Ask questions. What was I supposed to learn from this? What was I supposed to take from this? And where am I supposed to take it? Where do you want me to go from here? If you truly leave yourself open, the answers will come through that door. As a child of psychopath parents, I went in the opposite direction. I became a good person, albeit a very sensitive person. And although I've made my mistakes, I've also learned that the universe, God, energy makes no mistakes. You can make them. But the force of the universe makes no mistakes. Nothing is random. And if you leave yourself open and if you listen, you'll have your answers as to why, and you'll have your answers as to where to go next. The walk and the path and the journey are not easy. They're tough as hell. And possibly when people talk about heaven and hell, this could be hell right here. But you can turn it into something better. After the storm. And I would like to believe that that is so. So here, in a way, I got my answer, and God and the universe truly love me. They did for me what I should have done for me, and they took someone with whom I should not be with. And I see that. I see it very clearly. Sometimes we're like children. We don't like it, but we know it's what's best for us. And I'm willing to deal with that. Because it's over. And even if he called, I could not reply anymore. It's done. But in your darkest moments, take 2 deep breaths to try to overcome. Remember, your journey is that road, and sometimes you have to step off of that road and get onto the center island. I've said this before, cars are coming at you in both directions, but just stand at that center island for a moment if you can. And just be there. And when you feel that it's okay, step off, go back to the road, and continue walking. You will get there. You'll get there eventually. But keep going. And remember, keep your faith, and your faith will always, always keep you.